This is Mrs. Jan Huger Franklin.
Bon après-midi. I am a Huguenot, and it is indeed a pleasure to know and meet you through the press.
French Huguenots came to Charleston in 1680. April 15th, 1680, 45 Huguenots landed down where what is now White Point Gardens. They came here through the missionary efforts of the Church of England because they were trying to populate the colony. And they were Protestants from France and were forced to leave France because of the religious wars. And they immigrated, 400,000 of them or so went to Germany, Ireland, Switzerland, England, the Netherlands, and many came to the States before the ones that came here to Charleston, specifically Manhattan. That group settled in Manhattan in about 1670 and started a church there, the Church of St. Esprit, which merged with the Episcopal Church in the 19th century. If you go on up to upstate New York to New Paltz and New Rochelle, you'll find Huguenot settlements there. But the only church that has continued with that liturgy that they brought over from Switzerland is this church here in Charleston.
They were very, very helpful to those that were coming over because there were still people being persecuted who needed a place to go, and they would take them in and look after them and help them as best that they could. They were a great asset to what this land has become because they were loyal people and cared. They protected the things that they had. The church was their great love, and they took beautiful care of it, and the services were very interesting. They had an annual service every year, which was in the spring, to be certain that they'd gotten through the past winter and gone through to the spring. They were thanking the Lord for that, and they had what they called a reception with a collation. Usually that was done out in the country. They trekked out to the woods to where other markings of the French were, other little churches, other graveyards, and left flowers and plants there, and just generally looked at the scenery that they had become to love a great deal. They still, to this day, have an annual service every year in the French church. Now that service is given in French. French was the only language spoken in the church from the beginning until about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little longer, and then they had to have English services. So they reserve 1 day a year in the French church to have a service similar, using, of course, the Huguenot liturgy. It's still there, copied books that we've got, the original book from which the other prayer books were copied.
I'm Phil Bryant. I'm pastor of the Huguenot Church. Back in 1982, my late wife was looking for a teaching position. Looked in the Charleston paper in the classifieds under education and found an ad, wanted part-time pastor for downtown church. She dared me to write them a letter and send a resume, which I did because she dared me, never expecting to ever hear anything. And then probably 5-6 months later, I get a call from Arthur Ravenel Jr., who was the chairman of the search committee. And he brings the liturgy by. He explains to me what they're looking for. And so in September, I met with our board of directors. In October of 1982, we started our first service with 15 people. And since then, we have gone through 2 or 3 restorations. We have seen the church grow to nearly 400 members. We are the only independent Huguenot church now left in the country. The church was organized in 1681. The first building on this site was 1687, and it's a very vibrant congregation now, Sunday after Sunday.
They were rice planters, and they knew how to plant rice and plant it well and make the crops yield abundance of rice. the staple diet of the southern part of South Carolina, the Low Country as it was called. We are here. We will continue to be here.
Several years ago, Dr. Renee Ravenel married Eva Ravenel, and a member of Eva's family was concerned that it would sort of look funny, a Ravenel marrying a Ravenel. So went and talked to Grandma Ravenel and said, well, how close are Eva and Renee? And she said, about as close as Adam and Eve, about 26 cousins.
Okay.